Hey YouTube, accomplished the impossible here, back after a very long time. I apologize on not coming out with the videos. Been hectic. Moved across 3 states in the span of a couple of months. So we're back, and I am back here in the server room, which I do owe some revamped videos, which we'll probably get out later on. But was wondering about what kind of content I could come out with, and I figured this would be a really good opportunity to go over something I think everybody that is really big into radios, not just as a hobby but commercially, should have in their collection. In front of me, this is a Hewlett-Packard full site test set. These are online. You can get them on eBay, or you can find them at garage sales, actually, funny enough. And these are full certifiable, and they still support calibration for them. These are HP test sets that will test. This particular model is an HP 8921 Alpha. I have had it for about 8 years, and it has actually outperformed other test sets like the General Dynamics or an Aeroflex on occasion. So, what does a site test set do? A site test set tests pretty much anything you can imagine. It tests transmitters, it tests receivers, it tests noise, and in this case, this particular model was the flagship of CDMA when it came out for cell phones. So this test set will test, if it had the module on the top here, would actually test for CDMA and so on and so forth. This has a scope in it, this has a signal generator, this has a tracking generator, this has a receiver, and this has just about anything you could ever need in a test set. So let's pull off the cover. Inside, we have a couple of things going on. First of all, we have the cover here. The cover has quite a bit of cables in it. Oddball screwdriver for servicing stuff. These are preset cards, so we'll go over that a little later, but essentially you would put this card in, save a preset that you wanted to test to it, and it would load a program that you put on it. This particular one is just an RF comm test, and this is for like whatever they put on it. Maybe it was for tuning, who knows. And then of course you have some attenuators for antenna port, and we have a DB25 adapter. This right here is usually for printer output, so if you wanted to print the results, you could. And just more preset cards. We also have pretty much a little cheat sheet handbook that tells you a quick reference guide on what pages to flip to do specific features and functions on the fly, so you don't have to pull out the giant user manual. These guys are on eBay. You can get them occasionally. Their prices are around $3,500 to $4,500. For what it does, that is an absolute steal. The modern days of this, for example, the Viavi CX200 is the newer one. It's about smaller than this. It's definitely not as big. It doesn't sit as far back. And that does everything in the radio realm, from microwave to gigahertz to, it's just insane. And those will run you about 20 grand plus, depending on what options you want to install. So, in the grand scheme of things, this test set is really not that expensive compared to the latest and greatest. And again, you can actually take these to a local calibration shop that calibrates test gear and say, hey, I have an HP, give them a call, say I have an HP 8921 Alpha, and they will tell you yes or no if they can calibrate it. I have yet to find a shop that will not calibrate it. I actually just had mine come out of calibration, and I need to get it recertified here shortly. But we'll go over some of the screen options here. Simple, power on and off. This is our antenna port. Notice you'll see max power 60 watts. This will test a transmitter up to 60 watts of power. Really cool. and it will also generate a signal through the antenna port, or through the RF port. I'm sorry. Will generate a signal, will receive a signal, and it will tell you if your radio is 0 or it has a drift in the frequency. Duplex out is for signal generation. Antenna in is something you use for a super sensitive item. So if you're actually messing in the milliwatts of power, you would use your antenna port with a attenuator on it. But you got to be really careful because the antenna port is extremely sensitive. It is designed for very, very sensitive clocks. Usually it's something you would use to test a 10 meg clock to make sure everything's correct. Mic and access, this is essentially for your probe. This is also for your audio in to do an audio test. Simple, volume knob, squelch. We have audio out, so if you want to produce a tone of some sort, you can do audio out. And then we have audio in, high and low, or left and right, depending on what program you're using. Everything I use is pretty much excluding these. I really just mainly use these ports for the RF world. And then up here, again, it'll test for receive, transmit. You can do duplex. You can do specific tests. You can do a local system. You can recall a test or save it. And then that actually scales out to the modern day. So if I go into a modern day test set like a Viavi, I can save my preset or save my test, and it will save it into the internal drive, or it will save it into those cards depending on what you want to put in. Preset is a option that just allows you to completely reset the system and go back to defaults. I use that quite a bit. If I'm coming out of one test going into another, I'll hit preset and it will throw itself back into its original state and kick you right back into being ready to go from vanilla. These things are spectacular at tuning duplexers and site combiners. They're very, very easy to use. And this particular model, this unit here, was actually used in a test I had with the Marine Corps, funny enough, when I was doing work with them, to tell them that their systems were not working correctly. So we actually found out they had a General Dynamic test set. I do not remember what the model was, but this system, I always keep this in cal so I can use it and reference it. I use it for a lot of heavy applications where I need it to work and I need to know it's going to work. So this was actually able to tell us that their General Dynamic modern test set was not functioning correctly and needed to be sent out for recertification, recalibration. So the thing's a dinosaur. Something of this age was probably 1980s, 1990s it came out. I want to say maybe late 1990s. I'm not sure on the date specifically. But this thing is a tank, and I take it all over the place. It's heavy, it's loud, it runs a little hot, but it is an absolutely beast piece of equipment, and I cannot keep track of how many cans I've tuned with it, how many radios I've tuned with it, or checked alignment. It's just always there when I need it to. So let's power this thing on and see what it does. Okay, we just went ahead and powered the unit on. She will turn on here shortly. I'm actually going to turn off the light so you can see the screen a little better. Okay, so it's on. That's it. That's super simple. Hit the power button, does a little internal boot, and it turns on. So, funny enough, here's the copyright date, 1990 to 1996, so you can kind of get an idea of when this thing was made. Its firmware version is A17.00. Don't know when that firmware version came out, but if somebody in here is an HP engineer, I would love a comment on that. The important one is all self-tests passed. This thing did an internal check, checked everything internally, checked the clock, checked its RF, and it's happy with it, so it passed. We are at the very basic level of the screens here. This essentially is our signal generation, and yeah, adjust the camera here. So this is what we would use to generate a signal to test a radio's noise thresholds and to make sure our receiver was good. So we're going to do a quick RX test. Or, I'm sorry, TX test. So this is set up right now. Let me turn volume down. What this is set up now for is to transmit a radio into it. So currently it auto defaults to 150.000. We can actually go to, let's just do 445.000, which is a ham band. And we can essentially now put a radio into this, key it up, and the test set will tell me what my radio is doing. Okay, I apologize. I had to actually change the frequency, but I have my Harris XG100P plugged in. So right now, I'm not keying up, I'm not doing anything. We're gonna key up on 462.550, and I will be on 5 watts. So when I key up, we will see TX power show me anywhere from 4 to 5 watts, hopefully. And our TX frequency error should be really, really low. 3, 2, 1. All right, keying up. Yep, 5 watts of power, and we got a 0.2 kilohertz drift, which is really in the ballpark where we want to be. So it's showing me my deviation. So if I talk into it, test 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3, you'll notice the FM deviation jumps. And yep. Trying to see if there's anything else here I need to talk about, but looks like we're pretty much good. So super simple. This is pretty much telling me my radio's on frequency. Now, if I wanted to, I could go into my TX tuning option on the Harris XG100P and tune the radio to get that 0.2 kilohertz, just enough to where maybe it's like 0.1 or 0.15, but 0.2 is totally acceptable. No issues there. It does a lot of other things, guys, more things than I can even think of, but if we go through these, like I said earlier, we have RF generator, so now I can generate a frequency out, or transmission out on a specific frequency. Right now it's set for 100 meg, and then I can go to RF analyzer, and then this is just what we just did, essentially, telling it to listen on that specific frequency. This is essentially just noise generation for AF, ANL. And we got scope. Scope is what you're gonna use, what you would use to do your scope stuff. So your oscilloscope frequencies, give or take, whatever things you would normally do or use your oscilloscope for, this is what it does. Spectrum analyzer, I live in this world a lot. This tells me everything I need to know about my RF. So right now, this is my noise floor. Don't have anything connected. I don't even have an antenna connected. It's just that BNC. But for the sake of showing you guys how it works, we will go connect the radio again. We will key up on that GMRS channel because we're still tuned to 462.550, and we're gonna key up. And there is my peak. So at 5 watts, I'm actually seeing the peak there. So if we just a reference level, we can actually get to the top of that peak, which is right there. So our center frequency is right on. If we had any kind of deviate, this is me talking across it right now, and you can see how it's deviating on the RF, that's normal. If we had any kind of issue with the transmitter, we would actually have a little bit of a drift, or it just wouldn't look like a perfect peak. So super handy to see what your radios are doing. We can also adjust a span. So if I go in here and I type in a 5, we can go in and see now we're covering 5 megahertz. Just for sake of experiment here, I'm gonna put on my old Radio Shack scanner antenna and let's go check out some radio stations in my area. Okay, got one of our local radio stations tuned in, so you can kind of hear the audio. And you can see the peak just a little bit here. I'm indoors, so the service isn't great. But we are actually seeing the station's air from where I am compared to the tower, which is about a 1 kilohertz offset occasionally, and then it goes up to 4 and all over the place. So it's really good. Transmitter is relatively strong. Deviations, just because the audio is coming across, and pretty simple. So we can actually make this a little louder if I turn that filter off there. So yeah, these things have a whole range of things they do, and like I said, there's a lot of stuff in here I'm never going to use. For example, if we go over here to the choices, I got a TDMA test, PDC, PHP, call test, CDPD. This will test amps as well for phone systems, CDMA, gens, analyzers, you name it. It's got all the good stuff. Cool thing, like I said, I don't use those. I just use RF gen, RF analyzer, and then occasionally a scope, and I use the crap out of the spectrum analyzer right here. So if you're asking if you buy one of these, can you tune duplexers? Absolutely you can. It's not an easy process, but it's not a hard process. Once you do it a couple of times, you start to get the hang of it, and it's becomes second nature. It's actually pretty quick when you get the hang of it. So this does have the option to print if you really want to. You would have to get like a DB25 adapter to print from, but essentially all it's going to print is the screen. And then it also can go to a CRT. But just to give you a size of how big this thing is, I mean, it's big. It's not small. So this probably weighs 10 to 15 pounds, give or take. It's got a nice little carrying handle on it. And, yep, so like I said, I'm just using the Radio Shack, an old Radio Shack scanner antenna that I was using to grab RF. So actually, if I hold this, you'll see the signal goes up because I'm helping give it a little bit of receive strength. But anyway, pretty neat. You can see how I disconnected there, it dropped the noise floor, and now we're back down to just regular noise. So yeah, that's it. Figured that'd be interesting. Again, if anybody is really into radios and you want to get more into the RF world, this is a need to have. You're gonna pay, like I said, $4,500 to $3,500, but it's well worth every penny once you figure out what you get out of it. So I hope that helps. And so again, apologies for the long delay in videos, but we should start cranking them out.